there have a piece of this, what I call the parenting puzzle.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I don't have all the answers, but I have some great pieces to the puzzle. And what I love about aTLC is that we're trying to bring all the pieces together. When I talk about my 7-week series with parents, I tell them that it's a lot like a jigsaw puzzle. You don't have the whole picture until you have all the pieces. So if you miss a class, you know, it's really important to make one up because you're not going to have the whole picture. And I feel like we as a society, or we as an organization of aTLC, we don't have the whole picture, but we're gathering so many of the pieces, and if we can all work together, then, you know, it's like so many of the people I read. There's this wonderful woman, Bonnie Harris, who lives in New Hampshire, who has written this book, When Your Kids Push Your Buttons. That's a huge piece of how we respond to our children, is when our buttons get pushed, we're not responding from the same place as we are when our buttons are not being pushed. So she's got this magnificent piece of it. And Becky Bailey wrote this book, I Love You Rituals, which is based heavily on Theraplay. And she writes like, I can't even think of how many, like 76 activities you can do with children that help you connect with them. Concrete things that parents can do that very day that will increase their connection with their child or start rebuilding it if it's weakened. You know, Larry Cohen, who wrote Playful Parenting, I mean, he is just amazing how he gives parents the insight to connect with their children by playing with them. Like, most adults do not know how to play with children because they didn't get played with. And I didn't. With my own children, I didn't play with them. And one of the things that Larry says, of all the things we may like to change about our parenting, playfulness can be learned. It is an art that can be learned. And I can attest to that because I learned how to do it with my grandchildren. It was not something that came naturally to me with my children. Playing is hard work for me. But now it's become fun. I know how to do it now. I get it.
And
now it's
Theraplay came from where?
It's there's the Theraplay Institute in Chicago, and the level of cooperation that parents get from children is usually equal to the level of connection children feel with their parents. So the minute we see a drop in the level of cooperation, we need to know there's been a drop in the level of connection and work on getting that connection back.
So what are some of the signs of the child that is not bonded with their mother? How does that show up?
Drop in the level of cooperation.
Yeah. What kind of behavior?
Conditions under which their children and they can thrive together. You know, and it's not saying this is the bar, this is what you have to do. And because that only engenders guilt, because we don't live in a perfect world and we're not going to have the support always to create the conditions that are optimal for our children. But at least if we know what they would be, then we can strive to get the resource we need to create as much of that as we can for families. So that's what I feel is different. It's not a parenting philosophy. It's not a method. It's having distilled all of the work that's been done. We pay in our country for all this research to be done, and then we don't use the results of it. It just sits there on shelves. We know these things. Well, they've been known for many, many years, but they're not being used. So aTLC is becoming a vehicle for all of this wisdom that is sitting there to be accessible to parents. It's available, in libraries and in all kinds of places, but it's not accessible to parents in a way that they can use it. So all this research together, not to share with parents. It's not a parenting method or a parenting philosophy that someone has come up with, or anything aTLC is taking credit for anymore. Well, the example that I share with people any more than if a gardener started noticing, well, this plant seems to thrive in these conditions and this plant seems to thrive in these conditions, and sort of started recording all that information and then shared with his neighbor, I've discovered that tomatoes really thrive when we create these kinds of conditions to grow them. He's not saying, I am the gardener extraordinaire and I know how to grow great tomatoes. I invented this way. He's just sharing the observation. And that's really what aTLC has done, is taken the time to gather all of the research and ancient wisdom and information that we have about
Segment is
information available to all parents. That's my dream. It's for this information to be available to all parents. I mean, one vehicle that I see for that was how I learned John Bradshaw's information about why parents weren't able to use this because of their own wounds. I got to see it on public television. I recorded it on my video, my VCR, and then I watched it again and again and again till I got it. And if parents had access to this, I mean, that is one of my dreams, to have one of my, exactly. So, I mean, you can spend all day with your child and never give them 1 minute of attention, of true attention. You might be occupying the same physical space, and children know. They know when we're paying attention to them because they feel it. Very often children will know that they're loved. They know their parents love them, but they're not feeling loved. So it would be the difference of being inside and looking out and seeing that it's a sunny day. Is very different. I know when the sun is shining than coming out and feeling it warm on my skin. Then I feel that the sun is shining. And that's what our children need so much from us. And if parents know how to make the most of the time that they do have with children, the two things that especially young children want most are to be with us and to do what we do. And, to do what we do affects their self-esteem. Children want to master their world. They want to be capable and valuable to do things not only for themselves, by themselves, but for others. And they want to be with us. So, if we've only got 20 minutes that we're going to be with our child today, we can do both of those things. Like, come help me do the laundry. So then they get to be capable, and we're spending time together, and it accomplishes all of those. There was a time when families had a lot of children, just so there would be enough family for them, all the jobs to get done, so the family could survive. And having children were considered assets, and they knew that. And that's not true in our culture anymore. Children are considered liabilities because they keep the parents out of the workforce, and they know it. And children need to be restored to their rightful place in the family as an asset. Spend that time. Parents have gotten into using this phrase of quality time, that, because of the lack of quantity of time, because of both parents having to work or being a single parent having to work, that we're going to spend quality time with our children. And quality cannot make up for a lack of quantity. And people laugh when I say this, but it's in the same way that just as you wouldn't say to a child, well, we don't have time to eat today, but quantity. And people laugh when I say this, but it's in the same way that just as you wouldn't say to a child, well, we don't have time to eat today, but we'll eat all day on Saturday. That just as they need food to meet their nourishment for their physical body, they need their relationship with us. And so we have to do that every day, not just Saturday afternoon at the park. We need that connection time because children need time with the people they're bonded to. And so it isn't that daycare is so bad or school is so bad, it's the long extended times that children spend away from the people they're bonded to because they can't get an emotional refill from anyone but someone they're bonded to. So if they're spending all day with people that they have no bond with, if their cup gets empty, then they're running on empty cup. And so if parents can go have lunch with their children at daycare, or they can drop them off later or pick them up earlier, or somehow not have these long stretches where they don't get that. And the example that I have that I love is, imagine your tank in your car was empty of gasoline or close to it. And so you pull into a gas station, you need to get a refill. If there were no hose, no matter how much gas there is in that tank in the ground, there's no way to get that gas into that car. And it's that bond that we have with children that serves as that hose of how they get a refill from us. They need that attention. And Larry Cohen's book,